I want you to picture one of your favorite vacation memories. When you think back about that vacation, what made that vacation special? Was it maybe the people you were with? Was it the experiences you had there? Did everything go perfectly as planned? I'm not sure exactly what you're imagining, but if you're anything like me, oftentimes my most memorable vacations are the ones where something surprises you, the ones where things don't go quite as expected. For example, we just got done with a family camping trip. It was super fun spending time with family. We played games around the fire, yard games, we went fishing. Although, one of the things I think will stand out most in our memories about that trip in the future is a random thunderstorm we got caught in half a mile from our cars when we were out fishing. It just started downpouring, the kind of rain where a few seconds into it, you're as wet as if you basically just jumped in the lake. We had kids in each arm. Some kids were crying, some kids were laughing. We had to cross a couple streams in the process on the way back to the car. My point is that oftentimes the memories that stick with us the most, the ones we look back on and laugh at, are the times where things did not go as expected. That is why today I'm happy to introduce you to our guest, Lillian Rafson, who was 23 years old and started a surprise travel agency. Now, if you have no idea what a surprise travel agency like I didn't, stick around and find out exactly what that is. What's going on, everyone? My name is Matthew Osborne, and this is the second episode in a series called The Young and Elite, which was a podcast I started back in 2016 to interview young and elite entrepreneurs under the age of 30 to figure out the things they were doing that really set them apart from everyone else their age. Subscribe down below to be notified when future episodes just like this are released. Today's guest name, as I said, is Lillian Rafson, and at the time she founded this business, she was 23 years old. I had an awesome time talking to her about how she came to start a surprise travel agency, what a surprise travel agency even is, and then how her business gained national attention shortly after she started it. So let's just dive into the episode with Lillian Rafson. Young and Elite, Episode 2.
Welcome to the Young and Elite Podcast, where your host, Matt Osborne, interviews the world's most elite entrepreneurs under the age of 30. Learn how to become self-employed, gain financial freedom, and live a life on your terms while you're still young. If you want to join the ranks of the Young and Elite, keep listening because it all starts now.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Young and Elite Podcast, the show that interviews entrepreneurs under the age of 30 2 times a week. Today, we have a guest that is gaining national exposure for her unique brand, Daily. Lillian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I am doing excellent. Lillian Rafson is 23 years old and is the founder of Pack Up and Go, a modern travel agency, planning 3-day weekend trips throughout the U.S. The catch? Your destination is a surprise until the day you depart. Pack Up and Go is now receiving national attention from publications such as Forbes, Tech Insider, and the Biz Journal. Lillian's greatest entrepreneurial accomplishment is that she's taken the company to the level it is without any outside funding. She's completely bootstrapped her way thus far and has successfully navigated the waters of starting and running a successful company. Lillian, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
My name is Lillian Rafson. As you mentioned, I am the founder of Pack Up and Go. I am a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania native. I had been living in New York where I went to school and was working after graduation. And I moved back to Pittsburgh last September to start this business.
Nice. So when did the business actually go live? When did it launch?
The product launched on January 1st.
Okay. Well, would you mind walking us through just how you started your business then, getting right into that? How did it all begin from the idea to when you actually launched that business in January?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I had been working for a startup in New York, and I loved living in the city. I really liked the company I worked for and all the people I worked with, but every day I was sitting at my desk kind of wishing I was outside and wishing I was traveling. It's always been a huge passion of mine. So finally, last spring, I just made the jump and quit my job, and I went to travel for a couple of months. And I was backpacking up the Baltic coast of Europe, and I made it to Riga, Latvia, when I was first introduced to the concept of surprise travel. And I met somebody who was on a surprise vacation from a European travel agency, and I just thought, wow, that's so much fun. That's something I would love to do. And I was in this hostel in Latvia, and I was talking to all these people who had traveled the United States pretty extensively. And I realized I hadn't been to a lot of those places, and I'd made it all the way to Latvia before going to Denver or going to South Carolina. And that just kind of rang a bell with me that, why as Americans are we so quick to travel overseas before even exploring American destinations? And why do I consider European cities or South American cities or Asian cities more destinations than American cities, even though they have so much to offer as well and are so much more accessible? And so from that hostel in Riga, Latvia, I spent the rest of the summer traveling and just kind of building the idea. And I decided to just move home and try to give it a shot. And I kind of built upon the idea and started curating all of these itineraries and maps of recommendations and talking to locals who were excited about sharing their favorite parts of their city, and want the tourists to come. And so from there, it just took root.
Nice. So were there a lot of startup expenses with something like this, or is this just something that you took the time yourself to go out and make these travel plans and itineraries and put all this together just by using your time?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest investment definitely was just my time. I think there's a big misconception that it's really expensive to start a business, but really, at the end of the day, all you need is the money just to register your domain, to register with your state. To register as an LLC in Pennsylvania cost about $75. I bought the web domain for 5 years for about $30. So it's really not that expensive to start a business cheaply. I will say right off the bat, I did not hire a web designer. I didn't build an app. I didn't hire somebody to custom come. And the great thing about this type of business is that there's very little overhead. I'm not buying inventory of anything. And so I just tried to embrace the minimum viable product mindset and just start with something that worked and wasn't necessarily shiny and beautiful, but it sent people on trips and they had things to do there and it worked.
So you had this idea, you took the time to make these itineraries, to put the effort into creating what this business, the foundations of this business. After that, how did you start getting customers? Where did that initial influx of customers come from? Was it friends and family? How did you start the customers?
So this is still kind of the craziest thing in the world to me, how that happened. I'd been talking to a lot of friends and family about the concept and just sounding the idea off of anybody who would listen, really. And I made my way onto Pittsburgh's NPR news station. They did a little interview with me. And I posted that link on Facebook, and a friend of a friend happened to work for Business Insider. And so I got an email from her saying, I heard about your company on Facebook from that interview. I would love to write an article for Tech Insider. Wow. And so I launched January 1st, and on February 8th, Business and Tech Insider published an article on Pack Up and Go. And from there, it's really just snowballed. And that initial exposure was honestly by pure luck. And that's what really started the snowball effect.
That's amazing. So was that tough right when that happened because you have a huge influx of customers? Were you prepared for that, or was that like, wow,
no,
what do I do and what did I get myself into?
Exactly. It was definitely a moment of panic because this is my first time owning a business, and I had planned some practice trips for friends and people in my network, but this is my first time getting orders from strangers and dealing with, all the customer service phone calls and the logistics and all of these questions that I hadn't really been prepared for, and other news outlets were contacting me, and it was still just me doing all of this work. So that was, it was kind of the best and worst case scenario where I was totally unprepared, but it forced me into action. And, I didn't sleep for a couple weeks, but I got all the orders out and I hired an intern to help me. And, and here we are. We're at about 450 trips planned now.
Well, congratulations with that. That's impressive.
Thank you.
So when you started this was your full-time job already, right? You'd already quit the startup that you just finished traveling. So you had all your time to dedicate to this, correct?
Exactly. But I'll be honest. I had quit my job and I spent all my money traveling. So when I started this, I I moved home. I didn't really have any money. So I was working at a bar in the evenings and doing this all day.
So then what were your first streams of revenue for the company? Was that just selling it to friends and family, and then the other streams of revenue started coming in after that? Or when was the point that you said, hey, I'm making enough with this that I can make a full-time leap with this and stop working the second job at night and take this full-time?
Well, the great thing about Pack Up and Go and this type of business model is that, as I mentioned, there's no overhead. So it's inherently a cash flow positive business. We're not booking flights or hotels until we receive money from a customer. So we're never spending money we don't have, which I think is key in starting a new business with no funding. I will say for the first 7 months, I did not pay myself at all. Instead, I just chose to reinvest all of the money, kind of have a nest egg as an emergency fund. And I knew that it was more important for me to hire and pay support staff than to start paying myself just yet. So I actually just recently started paying myself and quit my night job, which is really exciting, a little bit scary, but I definitely prioritized paying other people and reinvesting in the company as opposed to paying myself. And, that meant 7 months with very little sleep. And it meant going from work to another job. But that was worth it for me. And I hope that it'll pay off in the long run. So far, it definitely has.
That's a really unique concept to think about. I don't think a lot of people think that way that you just said about hiring support staff before you actually start paying yourself, because I think people try and start paying themselves first and realize that although they're taking more money out of the business, they're getting no more work done because they're at their full capacity. And so that way of scaling it that you just said is an excellent example of that. And I also really like when you pointed out that you guys aren't paying for anything until the customer pays you first. I think that's a key concept there of validating your business idea to the point where people are paying you before you even have to create the product for them. And that's an excellent way to start a company, especially like you said, when you're limited on funds and you're limited on time, etc. So what would your best piece of advice be then for someone that wants to do what you do? They want to start a company similar to what you do.
I would say go for it. I mean, the great thing about starting a company so young, I just turned 24, so I don't have children. I don't own a house. The stakes feel pretty low for me right now. And so I went into this thinking, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just work at a bar and I'll apply for new jobs. As I said, the stakes just feel low. And so taking that risk wasn't as scary. It's been more exciting than scary, I would say. And when I went into this, I thought, hey, if I plan a trip for 2 people, it'll have been worth it. It'll have been really fun. I'll have learned a lot. But I never thought that I would be planning it for hundreds of people within the first year. That's really gone above and beyond my expectations.
One of the awesome key concepts I've gotten from the different interviews I've done is that everyone seems to say the same thing about, hey, if I start it and it doesn't work out, I've learned a ton along the way. I can bring those experiences to something else. And if all else fails, I've helped some people along the way. And that's a great way to think about it, because then why not start a business? Why not put yourself out there? The worst thing that happens is you learn a little bit and you can apply it later on in life.
Exactly.
So what are your dreams for this business that you have? What do you see it being in the future? Right now, you're just taking in orders, doing these trips. Do you plan to get something else in there product-wise, or what are your dreams for this?
That's kind of the big question right now. And it's hard to say. We haven't even been open for a year yet. So much has already happened. So at this point, I feel like everything is on the table. I guess the biggest question we get is, will you start expanding to international trips? And I like to think that before we expand internationally, we'll probably expand trip formats within the United States. Maybe expand from our current trip model, which is 2 nights, 3 days. Maybe we extend to longer trips or multi-city trips. And maybe explore that option before dealing with passports and customs and visas. That's kind of a whole other can of worms. So I don't know. It's hard to say. For right now, I'm really happy with what we're doing. I am kind of happy keeping it a more boutique business as opposed to seeking investment and accelerating, which I think is a big trend right now. We'll see. I really want to see how long we can bootstrap for before we have to cross that bridge.
Well, that's great. So what is one habit you believe the Young and Elite listeners should implement in their lives? What's a habit that's really helped you?
I would say just be open to spontaneity. just be open for anything. That's kind of what led me to start this. And I definitely wouldn't say it's being fearless. I do think that, I have had a lot of moments of panic, but I think just being open to change and knowing that, if this fails, yes, it would be really disappointing and I would have invested a lot of time in it, but everything is a learning experience. So just being open to that.
So when I was searching your name on Google when I first reached out to contact you, I saw a video about a FedEx, what was it? It was a FedEx grant. Is that something that you had applied for in the beginning when you first started your business? Is that something that ever worked out there, or how did that come into play?
Yeah, so that was the FedEx Small Business Grant, and we applied for that. I guess it was maybe in mid-April or early May, and because we're bootstrapping, because we don't have investment, we're always looking for alternate sources of revenue.
Definitely.
And so we have been applying for a lot of grants. And the FedEx Small Business Grant is a great opportunity. They support 25 businesses a year in various size grants. And we applied and we made it to the final round. So they chose 100 finalists, but we did not win. But, we were in great company and it was still a great experience. And we're really honored to make it to the top 100.
So how do you go around looking for these grants? What kind of businesses will give grants to startups? And is that something you guys are still pursuing right now, is different grants from different companies? Or how do you go about looking for those?
It is. We haven't been looking as aggressively recently, especially because NBC Nightly News just did a special. So we've been a little busy with that. But, if you just do a Google search, there are a lot of companies that are looking to give money to startups. There are a lot of local grants. There's something called the Awesome Grant that is in hundreds of cities around the country. And every month they give $1,000 to some business or nonprofit or idea. So that is definitely something people should look into. I actually, when I was first starting the company, I won a small all-female pitch competition here in Pittsburgh called Invest in Her. And so that was a $3,000 prize that went straight to kind of web development and making the website look a little bit prettier. But there are, all it takes is a Google search. The money is out there and people are investing in startups and for free, no strings attached, which is great.
So I keep hearing you say all these cool companies that have featured your company on them, such as Forbes. Did you just say CB? What company did you just say that did a feature on you?
NBC Nightly
NBC
News.
Nightly News. How are you getting these PR exposures? Is this something that they're coming to you, they're finding you, or are you reaching out constantly to try and get more PR exposure?
Again, this is something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around and how fortunate I've been. But so actually on the day that Business Insider first published that article back in February, I got a call from NBC Nightly News within hours. And at this point, I was still kind of in panic mode. I couldn't believe that this was happening. It was still just me. I wasn't really sure where to start. And NBC Nightly News suddenly wants to do a feature on Pack Up and Go. And so I told them, listen, I'm still just one person. I definitely want to do this, but right now isn't the best time. I wouldn't be able to handle it. And so we agreed to just kind of talk at the end of the summer. And so earlier this summer, they got back in touch and we planned it out.
Was that difficult to do, to realize that, this would be an awesome way to get exposure, but it may be too much right now. Maybe I should put this off. To me, at least, that seemed like it'd be really, really tough.
I did have, right. Well, for me, it was a no-brainer. It was the only thing worse than not accepting the opportunity would be to accept it and not be able to handle it. And so to me, that was a no-brainer. But as soon as I told them that, a lot of my friends and family said, "Are you serious? You're passing up NBC. This is never going to happen again." But I thought, it would just simply be impossible then. I didn't know enough about the business. I didn't know enough about really what I was doing. It hadn't been developed enough. And so I just really believed that it would not have been possible back in February. And, I'm so glad I waited. I feel so much more prepared to have handled that now.
And did that?
And I think honestly, NBC appreciated that. I think they acknowledged, wow, this person is being honest with themselves and acknowledged that this wouldn't have been a good fit at the time.
So then you just were featured on there. Did that work out like you wanted to? Did you feel a lot more prepared when that influx came in? And did the influx come in like you were expecting after that feature?
Absolutely. It was great. And in the weeks leading up to it, we hired a small fleet of people to help handle the influx. And we're really happy with it. The segment turned out great. We've had a great response so far. It's been really exciting.
So how many people do you have working for you right now besides yourself?
So right now we're just 2 people full time. We do have 2 interns who are urban studies students at Pitt, which I think is great. They're helping us do research on cities. And I will mention, because I'm so young, I feel like I've had too many unpaid internships too recently. So we do pay our interns, which I'm very proud of.
That's great.
And then we have a couple people helping on a freelance basis. So helping us plan road trips and help us book the trips and with customer service. But we are 2 people full time.
So are you still involved with the planning of those trips, or did you guys kind of do that all at the beginning and you're just using what you'd already created, or are you constantly doing new locations, destinations, etc.?
Oh, we're constantly adding new cities. I will say now we do have 25 or 30 core cities that we send people to. But when you get a road trip departing from the middle of Kansas, you have to find new places for them to go. So we're always adding new cities and smaller cities and finding new places along the way.
I'm just curious, have you ever had customers say like, no, I don't like this surprise location. Why are you sending me here? Or I don't want this. Can I get a refund? The last day when they get the
Not
surprise.
yet.
Not yet. So everyone's been accepting of it?
Exactly. And, I think it's definitely a self-selecting customer. And people know when they're signing up that they're agreeing to go anywhere. And so I think, the whole point of it is that it's just 3 days. What's the worst that can happen? We're sending you off with lists of ideas on things to do. And every city has enough to offer for 3 days. So I think we're lucky that our customers just kind of inherently have an open mind to exploring anywhere.
Well, I think so. It sounds like an awesome idea. I definitely want to be doing that someday. So for this question, it's more of an analogy. It's a fun question, but it also really helps the listeners get an idea of where to start. So the analogy is you have a shoestring budget, you're working full time, but you want to become self-employed within the next year. What business would you start and how would you start it?
I would definitely... I would start pack up and go. I would just think of any type of business that doesn't require a lot of overhead. If you have to buy inventory, consider it out. That I would say is the biggest thing. And I would say start with something where you have experience as well. So whether it's being a photographer and you already have your camera and you already love it, something like that, something where you don't have to put in a lot of money up front is definitely the way to go.
All right, well, it is time for the rapid fire round. I will ask you 6 questions in rapid succession, and you tell us the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
All right.
All right, what is one goal you are trying to reach right now?
I'm trying to have more time to exercise outside of work.
That's always the issue. What is your favorite app or software that you would recommend?
I would recommend Squarespace.
Squarespace. What is your morning routine?
Waking up, checking my email while I'm still in bed, which probably isn't healthy. Trying to make a hearty breakfast and getting to my computer.
Nice. Do you work from home right now, or do you guys have an office you go to?
We started in a co-working space, which was great. But I was able, and this is another great thing about starting a company while not living in New York. I was able to find an apartment that's actually 2 stories. So the first floor is our office, and I live upstairs. And, my sister also recently started a business in Pittsburgh, so we've made it a little co-working space downstairs.
Nice. That sounds like a fun work environment. What is one book that you would recommend to the Young and Elite listeners?
I would definitely, without a doubt, recommend The Lean Startup.
I love that book. Excellent book. All right, you are given $100,000. You cannot spend it on your current business, and you cannot start a new business with it. What would you buy?
I would buy either an Airstream or an RV and just drive around the country.
Perfect. Is there any plug for your business that you would like to share with the Young and Elite listeners?
I would just encourage you to visit our website. It's packupgo.com. You can follow us on social media. It's packupgo_travel. And if you're interested in a stress-free adventure, give us a shot.
Now, if the listeners have any questions for you, want to learn a little more, is there any way for them to get in contact with you? Is the best way just through the website, or?
It is, and you can send us an email. It is hello@packupgo.com.
All right, Lillian, well, thank you for dropping some amazing value and insight today. I know I appreciate it, and the listeners do as well. And to close out this awesome interview, I have two last questions for you, Lillian. Who are you, and how are you feeling?
My name is Lillian Rafson, and I am feeling young and elite.
Thank you guys for watching episode 2 of the Young and Elite podcast. More episodes will be dropping every Tuesday at 6 p.m. If that sounds interesting to you, subscribe down below to be notified when future episodes are released. I will see you in future episodes.